Let's move on to conduct disorder. It's the next one. Just turn the page over. Now, I call oppositional defiant disorder an attitude issue, and you get a lot of mouth. And one of the distinguishing features between oppositional defiant and conduct disorder is that with conduct disorder, the child then begins to exhibit behavior and actions on other people and or the environment. A child with oppositional defiant, he or she'll make you crazy just with their mouth and manipulation, but they're not going to burst your walls, they're not going to break into somebody's house, they're not going to run away, they're not going to hurt somebody else intentionally. When you move into those kinds of behaviors, you're dealing with someone with conduct disorder. Okay, so when you look at the definition of conduct or the description of conduct disorder is defined as a repetitive and persistent pattern of behavior in children and adolescents in which the rights of others or basic social rules are violated. Okay, so they are actually doing an action. They are taking their words and then putting them into action. Okay, so they may say, you make me mad, I'm going to punch that wall. Someone that's oppositional would just say that. Someone whose conduct disorder does. Okay, someone who's oppositional will say, I'm just going to run away. Someone whose conduct disorder will run away and has a history of running away. And so it's important to really make that distinction between oppositional defiant and conduct disorder. And so they have difficulty following rules and behaving in a socially acceptable way. Other children, adults, and social agencies often view them as bad or delinquent rather than mentally ill. Let's see. Look down into the bottom paragraph. Conduct disorder is more common among boys than girls, with studies indicating that the rate among boys in the general population ranges from 6% to 16%, while the rate among girls range from 2% to 9%. It can have onset early before age 10 or in adolescence. Children who display early onset conduct disorder are at a greater risk for persistent difficulties, however, and they are more likely to have trouble peer relations and academic problems. Kids who are conduct disorder, they see the world as being against them. And so their whole thing is, I got to get you before you get me, because I know you're going to get me. I mean, that's just how they see the world. And so even something that could happen that is a neutral event, they will interpret it as being something targeted against them. Okay, that's their experience with the world. And so that's how they interact with the world. So they will get you before you get them. And so what are some of the behaviors they exhibit? Aggression to people and animals, bullies, threatens, or intimidates others, often initiate physical fights, has used a weapon that could cause serious physical harm to others, is physically cruel to people or animals, steals from a victim while confronting them, e.g. assault, forces someone into sexual activity, destruction of property, deliberately engaged in fire setting with the intention to cause damage, deliberately destroys other people's property. I've had kids that are conduct disorder that when we don't tell them that they're moving. And when I first went into this field, I thought that was just awful. Kids need to be prepared for the transition. But what I learned with kids with conduct disorder, sometimes when they know ahead of time, they'll trash your place. Mm-hmm. They will trash your place because they know they're leaving, and they will intentionally destroy your place because they're mad or for whatever reason. And so sometimes, and it's the same thing, we make decisions about what we're going to do based on what we know about that child's behavior and his issues. And so some people may look at that and say, oh, that's not fair to just abruptly move a child. Well, but if you know what that child's behavior has indicated and what they could do, then sometimes you do make those decisions. Deceitfulness, lying, or stealing, has broken into someone else's building, house, or cars, lies to obtain goods or favors or to avoid obligations, steals item without confronting a victim, shoplifting but without breaking and entering. Serious violation of rules, often stays out at night despite parental objections, runs away from home, often truant from school. Anybody have kids like this? You do?
In class.
In class.
Only
yeah,
two,
you
though.
do?
Yeah.
You know, we actually have a 5-year-old that we could give a diagnosis of a conduct disorder to. This little girl is the best thief I have ever known. She really is. She is the best thief. She will, and the foster parents, they took her out shopping one day, and she came home and she emptied her little purse and took all this stuff out and gave them gifts and said this was for them. And they said, this isn't okay. And she said, well, but we didn't get caught. You know, and so that's what she had learned. They didn't get caught. So the foster parents made her take everything back to the store and give it back. Every time she goes to the store, she takes stuff. I mean, it's just ingrained in her. So now whenever they take her shopping, they put her in a shopping cart and they don't let her. And then one day, she was getting ready to go to school, and the foster mom was going through her backpack, and she had a little butter knife in her backpack. And she said, what are you doing with that? Well, this girl at school was bothering her. So she was taking the butter knife to defend herself. And so this is 5. And so imagine what this child environment was like, that she learned these kind of coping skills. And so what I told the foster parent is you just have to check her bag before she goes to school and check her bag when she comes home. And when you take her shopping, don't let her walk around by herself. Don't let her carry a bag or a purse, and keep her in a shopping cart or keep her right next to you. But even right next to you, she can just reach out and, you know.
Yeah, we had a foster mom that was, she's 7. And, and I didn't expect, I mean, at 7.
At 7.
Yeah, and she's good. She is good.
It was funny because we had her for respite, and she was staying in my daughter's room, and that night, my daughter had spent the night at a friend's house and had left her purse sitting on her chair. And the next day, the chair had been tipped over, and the purse was missing. And we thought, oh no, she took the purse. And so we called the foster parents and said, well, we think that she might have taken this purse. And so I didn't personally go look for the purse. I took my daughter's word that it was gone. So we go up there, and I start picking up clothes, and lo and behold, hey, here's your purse. All your money's in it. What we had found in the car on the way dropping her off back at the foster parents' house was some money that she had put in the back of the seat and a CD that she had taken from my daughter. Well, then, when we told them that she had stolen the purse, they went into her backpack and they found another one of my daughter's purses she did steal.
So she did steal that one.
Yeah.
She stole another one. Yeah.
Yeah, but she's good.
Oh yeah.
But what she does is she takes it and then she brings it to her visit to give to her mom.
Yeah.
Because
And that's what these kids do, and that's what this little girl does. When she steals stuff, she doesn't steal stuff for herself. She steals stuff for her parents.
Yep.
And so that's what they do. And so, but when you get with older kids, kids who vandalize buildings, kids who break into stores, kids who break into cars, conduct disorder, okay? And so understand that that's what you're dealing with. When you guys have kids and come into your home, you need to have a safety plan. How many of you guys have safety plans? Oh, good. Okay. You know, most of these classes that I teach, they say, safety plans. What's the safety plan? So, now, the other thing is, who do you guys think people for your team? What other systems and or people do you think you're going to need to use as you work with kids in your home? Who else?
Teachers.
Teachers. Okay, teachers.
Case aid.
Case aid.
Social worker.
Social worker.
Therapist.
Therapist.
Worst case, police.
Police.
Parents.
Parents. Juvenile court.
Parole officer.
Court. Okay.
GAL.
GAL. Church.
We have parole officers in our.
PO. Okay. Anybody else? Probation officer or parole officer? Parole or probation?
Would you include the child?
No.
These are what we need in their life.
Who else? Anybody else you can think of?
How about other parents or,
Other foster parents?
yeah.
Okay. For respite?
Yeah.
In our team, we also include grandparents.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say
That's a
extended,
big part.
extended family.
Okay. Okay. The other thing that I say to parents all the time too is when you have kids with these disorders, it's not a matter of if you're going to see some of the behaviors that we've talked about. It's a matter of when you're going to see that behavior. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And what a safety plan does is it helps you know beforehand how you're going to respond when that behavior surfaces, because it will. And that's not being negative or being judgmental. It's just a statement of fact. Okay, it is going to surface. It's just a matter of when. And you guys all know that you have honeymoon periods with kids. And things are great. You are just the greatest foster mom. Oh, Dad, I just love you. This is just the best home that I've ever been in. And nobody ever understood me like you understood me. And then next thing you know, these things come up missing. And they're not coming home on time. And the school is calling you. And they got a stack of reports like this in the school. So it's going to come. Now, I want you guys that based on the information that we talked about this morning about these three conditions, I want you guys to, one, I want you to list out what you think the crisis issues might be. Okay, what, as you think about, like for kids with ADD, what do you think a crisis issue could be for a child with ADD or ADHD?
Forgetting something.
Forgetting their homework.
Forgetting their homework at school.
Okay, what could be another one?
Safety.
Safety. Taking off, impulsively running in the street. Okay, so think about that, you know. And then what could be a crisis issue for a child with ODD? Huh?
For the kid or for the
Well, that's a great way to think about it. And so what will the child be doing that could create a crisis for you, the parent?
You know, I think we're going to get into some type of law enforcement, juvenile issues.
Okay, now that's going to be conduct disorder. See, a child with ODD, they're just going to go into a tirade. And
at the store or something.
Oh, that's a good
They
one.
want something at a store.
Right, and get into an argument at a store with you.
They said, yeah.
Creating a scene at the store, that's a good one for a child with ODD. Now, the law enforcement one will definitely be the kid with conduct disorder. Okay, when they start getting involved with law enforcement, we're looking more at conduct disorder. You may have a lot of this with it, but they're going.
That comes first.
ODD comes first, and then conduct disorder. Okay, and so who wants ODD? Which of the two groups?
We did.
Oh, you guys got ODD, so you guys got conduct disorder. You guys got ADD. Okay, so what are a crisis situation for conduct disorder?
Hits the teacher.
Huh?
Hits the teacher.
Hits the teacher? Yeah.
Breaks windows, throws chairs through the windows.
Yeah. Running away is a
Running
good
away,
one.
yeah.
Okay, so I want you to list out, and list out like maybe 3 of them.
Come back with a tattoo.
Okay, 3 items. We had this one girl that she was a runner. She used to love to run. We could not get this child to stay home. So what we set up was, as part of her crisis plan, is that whenever she ran, when she came back, she had to go get a complete physical, including tests for sexually transmitted diseases and IV testing and all of that stuff. Whenever she ran, she had to go get tests. And so the child stopped running because she stopped wanting to go, because she didn't want to go to the doctor anymore. And so that's what finally got her to stop
You
running.
gotta think of a consequence that really, and
That's
hard.
going to have an
Yeah.
impact on them.
It's different for
Right,
every
because
kid,
you
yeah.
can't control their behavior. You can't control what they're going to do, but you surely can control how you're going to respond to that. Okay? So I want you to come up with 3 items. And then I want you to think about, based on what you're coming up, what's going to be your response to the crisis. And then I want you to talk about who needs to be on your team. Okay, who needs to be on the team for this child? For example, a child with ADD, you're probably not going to have juvenile court involved. Well, but you might if the child is missing a lot of school and the Becca bill is implemented because of missed school. That may be, but generally you won't have juvenile court involved with a kid that's ADD. And most of the time you won't have juvenile court involved with a kid that's ODD. But you will have juvenile court involved with a child that's conduct disorder. Okay? Because when they start inflicting damage and breaking social rules and laws, then there is already things in place that can be consequences for their behavior. So you got to let them apply. So if a child is on probation and they violate their probation, then you need to report it to their PO. And foster parents who say, oh no, that's not fair, they only did it once, we'll give them another chance. It's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. Okay, so think about who needs to be on your team. So what's the disorder you're going to talk about?
Conduct disorder.
Okay.
And okay, we were kind of deciding the crisis, like where the crisis was. So like we put hitting the teacher was the first thing.
Okay.
And so as a foster parent, we would be called, obviously, into the school. But the police would have been called. And the child is usually removed from the room in a quiet spot so he can be safe and not hurt anybody else and that kind of thing. So basically our response is to just stay calm and we just go through it. It's like, okay, this is what you've chosen. We talked a lot about that's their choice. They're choosing to do this. It's nobody else has made them hit anybody. They chose to hit somebody, and now you're going to choose to remove yourself from the room, or we'll help you.
Okay.
And so, and the people that need to be on our team would be everybody.
Okay.
The police would obviously be in our team, and we'd have a therapist if we didn't already have one. We'd need to have a therapist because we'd have to set, and as the foster parents, we need to really set up just the same consequences every time. You know that when you do this is what's going to happen. And
Okay. Now let me ask this: in this situation, who should be implementing the consequences for when a child hits a teacher at school?
Well, the teacher first, and then the police, and then the foster parent. I mean,
No, it's the parent.
Caseworker? It's the
No.
police first, isn't it?
No. If the child hits someone at school, the teacher needs to file assault charges. The school's going to have some kind of consequence for the behavior at school, right? And so the foster parent just has to support whatever consequences apply. Yeah. Huh?
When they go to the juvenile court?
If it goes to the juvenile court and they may have to take them to court, they may have to do some other
but you
stuff.
don't think you should have consequences at home?
No.
Oh.
Just
It happened at school, and so you may need to schedule a team thing if it continues to happen at school about how the foster home can support the school with whatever plan that they have in place. But one of the things you want to remember about discipline is that you want to have as little as possible and have it be as focused on as possible on wherever the event occurred. So to bring the child home and then discipline him for what happened at school is just going to be totally ineffective. And so what your role as the foster parent then becomes, okay, what is it that the school's going to do in relation to this school, to this child, and what do you need to do to support it? So like if a kid hits a teacher, gets kicked out of school, then the foster parent, well, they got to take him back into the house and, do whatever he's going to do. And when we meet, we may decide that in order to protect the school, that we need a case aide to be closer with this child. And so that's something we could do. But in this instance, let those other systems discipline this child for his behavior.
Because what happened, and this just happened in my classroom, and I've never had a CD foster child. And one of the teachers got extremely angry at the parents because the girl came. We talk about our highs and lows every day, and the girl said after the police removed her the day before, or 2 days before, that she went fishing. And this teacher just went crazy and said, I can't believe that you got to go fishing when you just hit me.
Okay, so did she get a consequence for her action at school?
Yes.
Okay, she got the consequence for that action, for that behavior. And so it's not that you're ignoring it.
Right.
And saying that there's no consequence for the behavior, but you don't want to give multiple consequences for the same behavior.
But I see what you're saying, because the school feels like then you're not supporting them.
Right.
And you said that you need to support the school.
Right.
Right.
And to me, because we kind of do the same thing, that it's a whole day. Okay, we're going to support the school, and the school's going to support us.
Right.
So if they do, impose a consequence there, whatever consequence, if they can't go on field trips or anything, that child can't go on field trips
Right.
until the consequence is over.
Correct.
Because often what I find is if the consequence outweighs the behavior will stop.
Exactly.
And so, we talked to them. I talked to the teacher, and the teacher's saying, you really got to get on board with school too. If you
Right.
want, and the allowance stops that day. There's no earning power that day. And so usually the next day, or when they get back to school, they realize that it's just not school; it's the whole day that they have to do well.
Okay, and so if that's what you guys set up, and that's the way you're going to work it, then that's a great way to work it. But if so that's a different perspective, so that the message that the child gets is that if you do this, then this is the consequence. You lose privilege for the next 24 hours or whatever that is. And so that extends beyond just the school environment.
Right, so that's what I'm saying. So if we set up, like, when we get the child that has CD, we already know that's going to happen. Behaviors are going to happen. And so could you not have consequences as a foster parent? Could you not have, if you blow out and this is what happens, then you're going to lose privilege for the day? Can you not, if
Sure.
it's set up ahead of time?
Yeah, because what you're saying is that if you blow out,
Right.
so if you blow out, that's something different than saying, what I'm trying to say is that if and this is for any child, that if your child breaks the lamp, and so you say you have a consequence for breaking that lamp, so this is your consequence, you got to repay for the lamp. And so then the child says, well, can we go to the park? And you say, no, you can't. Well, you can't go to the park because you broke the lamp.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
and so,
that
but you already had a consequence
Right.
for breaking the lamp because you lost your allowance. So you can't just keep piling up
Exactly.
consequences for the same behavior. And so if whatever that consequence is going to be for that behavior, then that consequence needs to be employed. So if they hit a teacher, because they could very easily hit a teacher and not blow out of school.
Right.
And so if the consequence for when you blow out of school, then this is what happens, then yeah, you do that. But if the consequence for when you hit a teacher and they don't get blown out of school, the teacher employs the school employs some kind of intervention at the school, well, then the school has taken care of that. Okay. And then the parents working together as a team, how can we support this? What do you need for us to do at home to support what it is that you're doing here, and vice versa?
But when you have the parents that don't have foster parents as their parents going to be able to support us because they have CD children and they tend to be very passive and
Yeah, and that's the problem.
yeah,
why they have
that's what I'm
CD
saying.
children.
That's what's the hard thing is that our kids that are actually living with their bio parents, there is no consequence. They don't support us, and so it's hard because
Right.
you know there's no consequence. They hit us, they go da 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 da, they come back.
Right, and so that's why the more you guys at school can employ a consequence for that child's behavior at school. And see, it then is going to become the parent's problem when this child can no longer be at school.
Right.
Then it becomes the parent's problem, and then they're going to be willing to work with you in terms of what we need to do to keep this child in school. Okay?
Right.
But just understand, and the only reason I'm doing this is because there's sometimes as foster parents, especially in dealing with kids that are CD, that there's some external systems that are going to be in place that are going to impose consequences where you don't have to do anything except support that.
Right.
And so if this child has probation conditions and they violate those probation conditions, then you report it to their PO. Their PO will revoke them, hopefully, and they'll go back and they'll serve some time. But if you don't do your part, then they don't go down that road. And so you don't have to come up with any other ones. Some of them are already in place.
So what you're saying is just go ahead and use, if you have a CD child, just use the systems that are already in place.
Exactly.
Right.
Use the systems that are in place to help support, you know, what it is that needs to be done. And with the CD kid, it is critical that you have a team working with you, because if you try to deal with all of their behaviors yourself, you're going to be disciplining this child 24/7.
Right.
You really are. Okay, so use the people on your team. So who else was on your team?
So then you need the therapist, you need the probation officer, you need the police, you need the
You need
case
respite.
Yeah, you need respite. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you may need all of those systems
The
and
case
working with them.
Right.
Well, if a kid blows out of school, then basically you're at home with this child. Now you
Right.
can't go to work. So now do you employ a consequence? Because now I'm stuck. I can't pay my house payment because I'm stuck here for the next 5 days because you got expelled.
And so that's where a team becomes very important. And so you say, okay guys, I gotta work. Social worker, this kid is blown out of school. He can't go to school. I can't stay home from work. What's going to be the supports in place to help take care of this child? Okay, and that's where the case aid comes in.
Right.
You know, and so that's how you do it. That's exact. And so it becomes a whole team effort
Right.
to respond to this child, and not just you as the parent
Being left hanging.
being left hanging. Right. And so that's where teams are very important for kids with CD. Okay. Tell me another behavior you guys have.
We had destroying property.
Okay.
And well, the crisis would be first to get yourself, you know, make sure you're protected and get yourself out of the situation and let them do what they're going to do. And call the police.
Call the police.
Call the police. And then we wouldn't have to do anything else.
Right.
Yeah, call the police and then, you know, I would make, if it was my kid, I would make them clean up the mess,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
And
make-
I think they should clean up the mess anyway.
yeah.
Yeah.
When they calm down and come back, okay, now
Right.
we'll clean
And
it up.
we said that they would have to, like, if they broke something, like punch a hole in the wall, they'd have to go to
Right.
Home Depot and get the little patch kit, patch it up the wall.
That would
And
be their allowance that they use, and that'd be their consequence.
yeah.
And there may be further consequences for them, and that if charges are filed against them, they may have to
Yes.
answer for that.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, the other thing that we do is when there's a crisis situation like that in a home, that they call the case manager from our private agency.
Yeah, we have a crisis intervention number. that we
Yeah,
call.
and so then we go out there, and so we'll process it with them and talk about what happened and problem solve it, and
Right.
you know, after the situation is de-escalated. So that's another thing that you can pull in to help with that situation.
Generally, with anything like that, when it is a situation, the first thing you do call is the case aid. I mean, that's what I have done. And they will come right on out.
Okay,
And the police also.
okay. Okay, ADV Group.
All right. Well, we came up with The crisis would be putting someone you putting themselves in harm's way.
Okay.
Typically, I said I used to climb trees when I was a kid, and I'd climb these fir trees 200 feet high, and I'd go to the very top. My parents would drive down the street to come home after work, and they'd see me swinging in this tree up, 200 feet. Basically, it came to the point where when I came home from school, they had put a schedule in place for me to keep me occupied, so that I didn't have time to go out there and climb that tree.
Okay.
So that was the response. Basically, was to put something in place that would keep me occupied, so that I would not go
Climb
get
the
into
tree.
mischief of one sort or another.
And so what if they do get up the tree though?
Well, if they do get, I was able to climb up and climb down the tree pretty easily, but say you can't, then I guess you're gonna have to call the fire department. And so that would be another person on the team that you don't have up there.
Yeah.
Because that will also be for fire starters too.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So who's on your team for this little guy or
Well,
girl?
I think it would be, you would probably employ a neighbor, someone or a sitter of some kind, or a case aide. You would have, for that particular thing, it would only be a few.
Yeah.
We're thinking more too in terms of school and keeping on task in school and scheduling.
And a lot of kids, they may have an IEP at school. And so then how do you work with the school in terms of supporting the child in school with an IEP?
Then you have a therapist, you'll have a psychiatrist or a doctor that's going to be involved.
Oh, we don't have doctor up there. Yeah, that is a critical one. And you want a doctor who has experience in working with kids with ADHD and
Right.
ADD. Yeah.
Someone who can prescribe medication, so it would have to be a psychiatrist.
And because you want them to be able to work with you and get feedback from the various team members as to the effectiveness of the medication that the child is on.
So then you'd have the teacher and then the social worker all working together.
Okay. What were some other behaviors you had?
Class disruption,
Okay.
where the teacher had to clear all the students out of the class in order to take control of the student. It became a point of a power issue, who was in control, the child or the teacher. The teacher, because at the point she was going to have a baby, the child wanted to bond with the teacher. The teacher said, absolutely not. We can't bond. She has a class to take care of. So it became so disruptive, they had to move all the children out of the class to get her calmed down. And I explained to her teacher, next time, please call me and I will come down there to give you an assistance, because that had only happened one time before, and it was because of, like I'd said earlier, a wanting to be with her mom, wanting to be here, and just wanting to be taken care of, wanting to be loved. So we had an action team that came. It was a principal, the teacher, a therapist, and the social worker got involved. And I think what we found on the team and everything was that she just needed to learn that, at home, we'll take care of you. At school, the teachers, the principal, and everything will take care of you, and you can't be disruptive. And through time, it's gone good. We haven't had another circumstance where it's like that. But I agree with you that medication is definitely an important issue in this case that I'm going to definitely look into, because I think it would really help her.
I used to, when my kids were little, and I used to counsel foster kids, there was one little foster child that wanted me to be her mother. And she moved into the community where I lived. And she saw me dropping my daughter off at school one morning, and she went and beat my daughter up. Because she saw my daughter hugging me and stuff. And so ever since then, I didn't work in the community where I live, just for my kids' safety, because it really is an issue for these kids about bonding and stuff. Okay? All right. Go on, ODV Group.
Oh, what are you looking at me for?
You have my notes.
It's because I have the notes. Okay, well, we again did the whole disruptive behavior from at school and then getting suspended from school, you know, because of mouthing off and stuff like that. And we decided that the best thing to do would be just to bring everybody together, the teacher and the teaching staff, the school counselor, foster parent, social worker, therapist, get everybody in a meeting without the child to try to strategize how to de-escalate the situation and how to have the child be responsible for their behavior so that they learn, you know, not to mouth off. And then, you know, you've got extended family or grandparents that you'd probably need to get involved, and then bring the child in and say, this is how it's going to be. This is what's going to happen. You know, once everybody is kind of like singing from the same page, then we're going to bring the child in and say, you know, not allow any discussion. Just say, this is how. These are the boundaries. This is how we're going to do it.
Okay, sounds like a good plan. Yeah, and you know, the one thing that you guys said that is real important, because kids that are ODD, they are real good at getting other people on their side. Oh, she treats me so bad, and she just doesn't listen to me, and so getting all the people together on the same page is critical, because they're going to play everybody on that team and see who we can get that's going to side with me.
Find the weakest link.
Find the weakest link. And so doing that is an excellent idea. That's a great way to handle that. And whatever the rules are, everybody needs to do them.
It's all it takes is just one person to agree with that kid.
Right, and then that's it. It blows your whole plan. I just love it when they get like a new social worker or a new GAL or a new CASA or a new therapist come on, and there's like, well, I talked with them and they're just really ready to turn their life around, and it's just like, oh God.
They play you.
They play her, yeah, and then we start all over again.
So this ODD training should be mandated for social workers and therapists.
Yeah, I tell you, the kids are so good. And you know, and even when people hear me interact in my therapeutic encounters with kids, sometimes they think I am just so rough. Oh, you're just so mean. And it's just like, okay, Drama King, I don't have time for this today. I'll see you next week. You know, oh, no, see, there you go, right there. You know, and so, but it is, you just have to do it very matter-of-factly.
Yeah, I find a lot of these kids, when I run into them later on, they did appreciate what you did for them.
Right, they do.
I remember having some kids, one of the kids particularly said, no, you're the only one that figured me out. And it would have saved him a lot more trouble from going to these other homes and kind of playing them all off.
Kids really, really, really want to be able to not be successful with playing adults. It's kind of this push-pull thing. They're going to do it, they're going to try it, but underneath what they really want is for somebody to say, I got your number, I'm not going to be sucked into it. That's really what they want.
I think they crave it.
They do. They really crave it.
That's just part of setting their boundaries for them.
Exactly.
You know, so that they're in a safe place where all their boundaries are here, and so they know that they can't step really beyond those.
Right. And the one kid that I was telling you guys about, my Drama King, when I realized he was playing me, I finally looked at him one day and I said, I'm 49 years old and I think I've had enough of this. So he looked at me and I said, and he started off, and all I say to him now when he starts down this road, I'm 49 years old. Okay, Sharon, you know, and so and so, you know, that's what they need, and they're responsive to that.